Hey friends, thanks for joining me, Jim Baroud, to hear a few insights from leaders who represent our innovation ecosystem. Today's chat is with Geoff Cook, the CEO of Noom and the co-founder of the Meet Group, and Catherine Connelly, author of Designing Success and co-founder of the Meet Group.
I got the idea for our first company, myYearbook, back when I was a sophomore in high school. Um, Jeff, my brother, joined us early on, but the idea stemmed when my brother Dave and I were flipping through a normal high school yearbook. In our room, we were new in the high school, we were looking to make friends, and we got this idea for meeting new people. We pitched the idea to Jeff over dinner one night, and he joined in as our CEO, and we started building this thing. So my yearbook was just this early social network that was all about meeting new people. And it really became this project for our school. So we launched it in just my school, which was Montgomery High School in Stillman, New Jersey. We, being in high school, we didn't know what we were doing. So we ended up, we would draw hundreds of pages of specification sheets, just pen on paper wireframes detailing and illustrating everything the site would do, how it would operate, and we found a team of developers in Mumbai that we would send it to. So we were, working sometimes to 2 or 3 in the morning, talking to our developers while still having to get up for 7:30 in the morning homeroom at our high school. It was a well caffeinated time. And as we're putting this out into our school, what was amazing was, we finally launched. We wear fun shirts to school every day that advertise the site, kind of like a guerrilla marketing strategy. Like they said, things like answering the questions that matter most: who are your friends, and are they hot? So silly things. And all of a sudden, people were joining. So we had about 400 people sign up within the first week at our school, and we, then knew this was a real thing. People were coming up to us, telling us their ideas for the site. They were so excited to be a part of this journey, so be a part of it. Um, and we continued to kind of hone the product while we were in our school. Dave and I were 15 and 16 at the time. Jeff wasn't really much older. And so we were very much like of the age that our demo was. And so we were able to really take that feedback and be like, oh, this is a good idea. Let's see how we can make this product better. Um, and then we were able to open up to all schools, and we ended up getting a million people to join within the first year we were open. And that kind of made it real. We raised venture capital. We eventually rebrand, and then we eventually, we raised 2 rounds of venture capital, and then we merged with a company called Kpasa in a SPAC-like deal in $100 million deal in 2011. And that kind of ushered us into becoming MeetMe, and then later we rebranded the company after a few acquisitions and became the Meet Group.
Holy cow. Okay. Now, when you started, was Facebook uh launched at that time? What was the environment? Just curious.
Yeah, so Facebook was launched. It was actually only in it was maybe in it was obviously it was at Harvard. I think it was maybe in 2 other schools, but it was only colleges. And Jeff actually had heard about. So when we told Jeff about this idea, he was like, "Oh, this sounds like Facebook," because he had read about it in a Harvard alumni magazine. And I think that that's one of the things that was like, "Oh, that this is real. This is like something people are doing right now." And initially we thought, oh, maybe we could be the Facebook for high school students, but we kind of actually pivoted very early on to being about meeting new people, because there was a very different way of college. You could gate signups by college email addresses and things like that. That didn't really exist in high school. What we found was people were logging in from basically all over, and it didn't really matter how many people were in their school for if they were more, for the retention metrics. And so what we ended up realizing was like, oh, we should just be about meeting new people and embrace people nearby. And that really kind of opened up the rest of our growth, because then we were able to see, focus on that as our main thing. And, that kind of made it clear what type of products we should be building, what kind of features we're engaging for our users.
That's amazing. And actually, that's when apparently I just realized that we met. I had reached out to you. I was running the Entrepreneurship Center at Fairleigh Dickinson, and I was looking for young entrepreneurs to speak at the conference, something like that, if I remember correctly, because we had a lot of programs nurturing entrepreneurship at the high school and college level. So that was it's just such a small world. So bring us up to date. So the Meet Group, tell us what happened there and then after.
Yeah, so we were so we became the Meet Group. We ran the company as the Meet Group. We launched continue to have great products. We had a few apps, MeetMe, Skout, Tag, Growlr, Lovoo in our portfolio, and we ended up selling the company in a $500 million acquisition in 2020 to the parent company of eharmony. And so that brought us back private, and I stayed on for about 3 years, working. I led marketing, we worked closely with other teams, obviously loved the company. And so, I stayed on for 3 years, but then when I left, I decided to write a book. And so that's kind of how I decided to, spend the time, because I think, my journey is well, it's kind of unusual. So I got to learn a lot of things, from a younger age than I think a lot of other people do. And so kind of what went into writing my book was I wanted to try to find, the lessons from building my company and how I think that they could be applied to, other people that are earlier on their career journeys, or other people kind of in the same spot that are just looking for ways to regain control of, what they're working on and regain their passion for it.
Awesome. We're going to circle back and talk about that. Thanks for giving us that. Now, Geoff, I know there's going to be some intersecting parts here, but tell us about, how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess my story probably as an entrepreneur starts even further back in 1997. I was editing. I was looking for a side job actually. I was in college at Harvard, and it basically was early in internet, right? 1997 is super early. I was going to need to work, right? I was going to have to find a job at Harvard, and I was looking into dorm jobs, and you could clean other people's bathrooms, or there was library jobs, and I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I could learn something. Um, uh, start a website. What would I start, right? And so that people would actually pay me for. And I figured, well, I'm at Harvard. Maybe they'd pay me to edit their admissions essay. So I basically created a very, very simple website, figured out the whole Perl script and picked up the tiny bit of programming to get a website off the ground, put this admissions essay editing company out there, and suddenly people just started going to it. And so, it was very small. It was perfect kind of student job. Um, they would come in, I would edit them, and return them within 48 or 24 hours. And so that was my side job. And it was like a $10,000 side job my first year. Um, I tinkered with it while at an internship, my between sophomore year and junior year, got it to 100,000, which then became, by the time I graduated, a few hundred grand a year in revenue, which was, obviously extraordinary as a senior, kind of graduating with that. I was able to raise money soon post graduation on the same concept, branched into resumes, ultimately grew it to millions of revenue, and then sold that. So that was my first company. Was connected to that through really 2004, 2005, which is when of course, the story intersects with Catherine. So I'd already kind of sold and exited a company. And then with myYearbook, we went on that run, that phenomenal run. Every chapter was a little different, right? There was the fun part in the beginning, which is also fraught, right? When you're worried about your servers melting under traffic, and you don't have the engineers and to the VCs, and you're worried about kind of getting kicked out of your own company, to then you sell the company. Now you're in a public chapter. You're in running. I was running the company as a CEO of a public company for about 7 years. That has all sorts of noise related to it, but a lot of interesting bits as well. Dealing with activists, dealing with short sellers, growing the company under a microscope, with while trying to hit quarters. That was all quite interesting. And then I exited that shortly after kind of the original kind of agreement following the acquisition was up in, I guess, early 2023, so not really that long ago. And I was having breakfast with a, a friend who is the ex-CEO of the Match Group in Dallas. So I was having breakfast in Dallas, and she was no longer at Match, but I was like, well, what are you going to do next? And I said, I don't know, maybe I'll do something in this mindfulness space, maybe try to atone for some of my social media sins. And she said, oh, that sounds like Noom. You should be CEO of Noom. And of course, that was when that wasn't on my radar originally. But as I looked into it quite a bit more, one of my first calls was actually Catherine. And I said, what do you think of Noom? Have you heard of it? And she said, heard of it. She showed me her weight graph. I think you were a wizard, Catherine. I don't remember what you were, but you clearly resonated. And so basically took that role at Noom in July of 23, and then have been doing that since then.
Excellent. Oh my God. What a journey. Well, and now we know why you were able to fund myYearbook.
Yes.
You had some money
Yeah.
from that previous venture. That's great. All right. So let's talk a bit more about the Meet Group and there's a lot to talk about, right? How it grew from myYearbook to being part of a large organization to doing a lot of having several sort of ventures underneath. So, Catherine, why don't you start telling us about that sort of story?
Yeah, so I think, as Jeff mentioned, there was like a few chapters of the Meet Group. I feel like, or my yearbook to meet me to the Meet Group. We joked, we were changing the company's name every like 5 years, just because it changed so much from like the very beginning, which was about meeting new people, friends, and then towards the end, it was definitely getting into more of like a dating space. And I think, as we were building it, and Jeff, alluded to it, we learned a lot about how to, well, we're dealing with activists and basically, when we were public, and we learned a lot about, something he likes to talk about is like fighting harmlessly, for instance, and really making sure that, as we were running the company, that we was building a company that we wanted to be building. So I think that one of the most amazing parts about what we were working on at the Meet Group was just how amazing our team was. Such talented people, and we're all working together. And when we were working on different things, what was amazing was just the collaborative approach of the company. So like, from, developers to marketing to product, trust and safety, all of these pieces really worked very well together. And so one of the great things about, our tenure at the Meet Group was just how long tenured the team was. And so, it wasn't like, in tech, there can be kind of more of like a revolving door, like, people are jumping from company to company. But what we found was that people wanted to stay, they wanted to work and build something. And so, that's what we did. And I think that our location, so we were based in New Hope, Pennsylvania, which isn't known for the tech scene. It's a super cute town on the Delaware River, lots of antiquing, great restaurants, not a tech hub. But I think it really insulated us from, a lot of the noise of Silicon Valley that really allowed us to build it and really continue making it our own. Because so early on in the journey, when we were raising our Series A, we first talked to a company in Boston, and they put down a term sheet, and they want us to move our headquarters to, Boston, New York, San Francisco, basically anywhere but New Hope, Pennsylvania. And one of the things that, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be in that town. And we kind of also saw that this was a chance of them kind of taking control. And we didn't want that. We saw this was like, oh, they want us to move. We're much easier to be, replaced in those towns, but also our location and, the community with the team, hiring's hard anywhere, but in New Hope, you're still in the tri-state area. There's still, a lot of talent. But what that really meant was that we didn't have a lot of the noise coming from Silicon Valley. So when there's, different fads, we were able to be a lot more choosy in what we decided to do. but also because of our location in New Hope, we also had to create opportunities for ourselves. So one of the things that for instance, we would do is, say we would say, oh, I'm going to be in San Francisco next week. Are you able to meet up? To companies that we wanted to meet with. And we had no travel booked, but if they said that they were ready to meet up, then we'd go there. We try to fill out the rest of the schedule. And so we would purposely try to make opportunities to, leave our bubble. But at the same time, I think it was good to be building the company in kind of that insulated bubble where we were, able to focus on what really mattered for our users and how to make meeting new people fun.
Interesting. And so were you working with the company when you were in college, or how did that work? Or did Geoff assume most of those responsibilities since I guess he was CEO?
Yeah, so Geoff was CEO, and I continued to work throughout college though. So I would actually come up to the office roughly every 2 weeks or so. So I was traveling a lot. My very first midterm in college, I actually had to get rescheduled, and it was like with a professor that was like, there will be absolutely no, if you cannot sit for the midterm or the final, you should drop this course. There will be absolutely no makeups. And, I come up to him like the first day of class, seeing the syllabus. I'm like, actually, I can't make that day. I'm going to be speaking at the World Knowledge Forum in South Korea that day. And, he was delighted, completely supportive. And that's what I found, I went to Georgetown. That's what I found was true of like basically all my professors. So whatever I needed to turn in a paper via email, which sounds crazy now that that's like, but it was 2000. I was in college 2007, 2011. So like, but my professors were always ready to work with me, figure out how they can support my entrepreneurial endeavors while keeping me as a student. And so they found ways to work with me there. But yeah, it was now of course remote work is a lot more common. But I had been doing it for my dorm room for the longest time. I used to sit in my friend, my best friend's dorm, and she would be working on schoolwork and I'd just be on her bed with my laptop, plugging away, but of course with a very long Ethernet cord because we did not have Wi-Fi in
That
the
is
dorm.
fascinating. That is fascinating. And I think I knew the gentleman who ran the Entrepreneurship Center while you were there, Jeff Reed, who I
Yeah.
think is still sort of involved with the community there. So it's indeed a small world. So Jeff, you were hammering out all the deals while mostly, or you had more flexibility to travel while she was in college. So tell us your perspective on that chapter, going forward with the Meet Group.
Yeah. So, I think what really stood apart about that company and our team was really just how innovative we were, right? Like, so, in 2006, we were building virtual currencies, right? We were building early social networks in 2005. We were in live streaming video multiple years before TikTok in 2016 and 2017, right? So basically that whole growth path was only possible because we were such deep product engineer technologists at the end of the day. We had a great engineering team, and we had a great product team. And with those two things, we basically imagined the future into being essentially. And we kind of saw where the puck was going, and we would go there. I mean, when this company started, it was MySpace was the dominant social network by far, and we would build these different growth hacks in order to leverage and kind of draft on that success, and with this quiz thing that led to our early growth. We grew to millions of users a month just off that quiz system that basically allowed you to put what Seinfeld character are you, or one of 100,000 quizzes, and put that in, paste the code into your undoubtedly very ugly MySpace profile, because it was a kind of a everyone could paste willy-nilly code into it back then. And then when Facebook became extremely popular, we had two of the top 20 Facebook apps when Facebook was hyper viral back in those very early days of Facebook apps, when Farmville and so forth, Zynga. And so and again, we were kind of funneling folks from Facebook into then MyYearbook. And so it was basically step function innovation after step function innovation, right? And so the reason we've been able to kind of skirt 18 years of navigate 18 years of different technological changes because we were often at the forefront of them. And so I I'm fundamentally a product person, but then I do wear kind of a strategic deal making hat, but I generally wear it from the lens of, well, what products can I develop if we were, to acquire this thing or to do a partnership with that thing. And every the best example of that is, I ended up acquiring four different companies: Skout, um, Lovoo, Tagged, and Growlr, and spending a couple hundred million maybe. And in each case, the rationale was actually to take that user base and be able to roll out the live streaming video platform that we had created onto it. And so it was a very product oriented, very clear view for why we would want to do that M&A. And in each case, it worked quite well. And in fact, so well that we basically ran out of things to buy, and ended up then innovating the business model itself and saying, well, what if we just did this as a platform as a service play with other companies? And we at one point we were powering 7 of the top 50 social apps in the United States with their live streaming video. It's how I knew the Match Group. A number of them were theirs. And so, it was innovation is the whole reason we were able to have that run.
That is amazing. That is an amazing story. Incredible. And so then you sold, obviously, you sold that recently. Was it during the beginning of the pandemic or latter half of the pandemic? And do you think the pandemic influenced the sale?
So we announced
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
The deal was announced like the day things were shutting down in the US. So we ended up closing, I think it was September 2020, but the deal was announced in like mid-March 2020. And so it was kind of going into the pandemic. We were the last, Geoff, what was it, like the $500 million deal was like the last big one announced for like a ridiculously long period, because a lot of things that were probably otherwise in motion kind of shut down, but ours kind of like was probably just announced just in time.
Holy cow. So
Yeah.
do you
Yeah, I
think,
think it was on a knife's edge for sure. I think if it happened to be a week or two later in momentum, the deal never would have happened.
wow. Wow.
Yeah, because
So,
once it became quite clear how dramatic what was about to change about life was going to be, obviously there was natural concerns about, well, are people going to even be dating? And this was largely a dating portfolio at that time. So, I think we got the deal done. It didn't have any real impact on it, although we were certainly impacted by it, right? Because you typically would do a deal and maybe expect the acquirer and the acquired to be spending an enormous amount of time together. But of course, COVID kind of made all of that impossible. And so, and the whole company, of course, for both companies kind of went remote. So, we continue to be very impacted by it over that period of time. But we made it work, and business was quite good actually, because while dating may be impacted in the pandemic, live streaming video was impacted too, positively.
right. So that's really amazing how it was so close. But what if you ever ask yourself, what if we waited a year, or if we, because a lot of things like this may be inflated in value. What's your gut say? If you waited 1 year or 2 years, do you think you would have been able to sell it for more, or what do you think the dynamics would have been then?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to speculate, but I would say, we were happy ultimately. You spend a lot of time, you do a lot of work, and I think the deal was a good one, and good deals ideally are considered good deals by both sides. So you like to believe that, and I think we had that in the case of the companies that I've sold in the past. So you know, I think, one of the things I kind of assumed was going to happen in the video space was that Tinder was going to kind of come in and really be disruptive. And that ended up not being right. But I might have been a year off. It ended up being TikTok. It was kind of coming in and being disruptive. And now, of course, TikTok is itself disrupted. So, it's I generally kind of look at it as you make the best call you can. You don't be kind of troubled by the word or. You kind of live things in a looking. I'm not sure who said it, but you only understand life looking backwards, but you have to live it looking forwards, and that's essentially the human condition. And so that's probably how I'd think about that.
Okay, fair enough. And what about the dating app market these days? How do you view it? Since I know, if I've heard correctly, it's taken a hit right now. I think, engagement is low and there are some challenges. So what's your perspective on some of those dynamics?
You want to take that, or you want me to?
I think I think a huge problem with dating apps, as like, the dating app fatigue that people are feeling, is just that they want to connect more personally. I think that people are almost forgetting how to do that. So, the Tinders of the world, they optimize for the swipe. And that's basically as shallow as you can get. And so there's definitely, has been this trend, within the dating app community for the last few years of, how can you make connections, be more than that. And so something that, we were proud of at the Meet Group was what video added to that, because it gave, what you find when people are generally joining a dating app is that, they're not just looking to have a date, like that transactional aspect of it, but, they're looking to find connection. They're looking to stop, to like end the loneliness they feel in that moment. They're bored, they're looking to do something. And the problem on most dating apps is you're joining and you're staring at an empty chat screen, because if you're a male user, typically you're going to be sending a lot of messages. You're not getting a lot back. You're not really getting any messages yourself. And if you're a female user, you're generally either inundated with messages, and that's a low quality experience, or you're also not getting enough messages because the other users are on this site. It's not like they're sending messages equitably. They're sending them to like, select members. And so either way, you're kind of staring at this empty chat screen, and you almost feel more lonely than when you joined the dating app, because now, you kind of just feel rejected. You're rejected. Your loneliness is confirmed because now, no, you're on the site. No one wants to talk to you. And so when we added live streaming video, what was great about that was that it allowed you to find connection right away. It allowed you, even if you weren't going to date the streamer you were talking to, it allowed you to find a community. And so I think that those communities is kind of the key to where dating apps can go, is how can you bring people back to, the communities they want to be in, and kind of leave the space of just like you're swiping through dates like you're swiping through Instacart. Because it's, you want to connect on a human level. Something that we've always found, we did when I was at the Maker, we did so many user surveys. I would love doing them. But one of them that was always interesting is that people want to start out as friends before they date. Like, 90% of people say they want to start out as friends. And like, the current dating app industry isn't really kind of focused on that. It's not focusing on how you can get some type of real connection between people, so that when you do meet someone, it feels serendipitous. It feels like magic rather than a chore. And right now, dating apps kind of feel like a chore.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see how that develops. In fact, there are some new apps, a new generation that are making it possible for people just to meet up. Pi, the meetings. I'll send you the news that I just got on my newsletter. But anyway, I'm sure you know all about those trends. So let's move on to Noom. Geoff, tell us first of all what Noom is for those people who don't know. Somehow know what it is, and tell us what what you confronted when you joined, and what your vision is.
Sure. So, the mission of Noom is to empower everyone everywhere to live better longer. Noom really broke into the zeitgeist in 2019, 2020, really being known as it's not a diet, it's a mindset. So helping folks lose weight through cognitive behavioral therapy lessons, basically boosting someone's self-efficacy, this feeling that they can do hard things. And of course, dieting is a hard thing. It takes committed time and effort. And we would basically partner with them on this wellness journey where Noom coaches, the Noom community would be supportive. We would boost this sense of purpose and efficacy through different tools and content. And so that was essentially the Noom that I found. What of course I noticed, and the company had noticed and was thinking about was how to position in an age of GLP-1 medications, right? Where uh, medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, right? Like, how do you position Noom, which was kind of known for weight loss, but requiring some effort, of course, in a world where you can get significant weight loss without really effort, maybe with a very 2 minutes a week with a shot. Um, and what so we one of the first things I built here was with the team, of course, was this Noom GLP-1 companion product, right? So I saw the two kind of twin challenges of the GLP-1: poor persistence to the medication. Many people drop off of it after only a couple months. And virtually everybody by year one is in virtually everyone by year two for sure. Um, but the persistence of the medication and also lean mass loss. Because people can stay in this very prolonged calorie deficit, they can lose a lot of lean mass if they're not also doing resistance training and tracking their proteins. So we reinterpreted the whole program through the lens of protein eating and getting enough protein, while also building into account the fact that people want to taper off of these meds. They don't want to be on them forever. At least many people don't, right? Especially if they're coming out of pocket every month. And so we built into the program a taper protocol that allows folks to kind of taper off the med in a kind of slow way. And what we're seeing is sustained weight loss for the vast majority of folks, sustained weight loss, even as they either taper off or as they taper down to a maintenance dose, which is certainly what some folks choose to do. So the first thread was really, let's build out this GLP-1 companion. The next big one, which took a good portion of last year to build, we launched it in September, was delivering the GLP-1 medication to the door of those who were clinically indicated. And the reason for that was we saw that if we prescribed the med and they went the branded route to their pharmacy, and what would happen was one of two things. The pharmacy wouldn't have it because the drugs are difficult and short supply. They're short, essentially. Or the person wouldn't have good insurance, and so they wouldn't spend $1,000 to access the med. And so we had an affordable price point, $149 for the first month, then $279 as you titrate up the dosing. And that is that's been our fastest growing product in the history of Noom, since and that's now, of course, with only 4 or 5 months old. And we can say that confidently. So it was a phenomenal launch. And now what we're looking to do beyond this is really continue to push Noom in this healthy aging space. Like, I view weight, certainly not today. Half of the population, suffers from obesity, but over the course of time, over the next 5 to 10 years, weight's going to be a solved problem. It simply has to be, because there's going to be so much entry on the GLP-1. There'll be generic GLP-1s. The prices will come down. Access should explode. It's not the case for the next 3 years, but over the course of time, of a longer time frame, that will be the case. So how do you think about where Noom fits into that? And I think of it playing in a healthy aging, helping people live better longer. And that's why that's our mission: empower everyone everywhere to live better longer. And so we're looking to make good on that mission with a handful of pretty important product launches that I can't really scoop, but that will be launching over the course of this year.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. Great news. Great progress and great hope for a big problem in our country. But tell us, there's always this talk about people who do New Year's resolutions, and I'm sure that affects your business, or maybe it doesn't. But apparently now is about the time when most people stop. Or February. I think February. I think that's what I heard. Can you talk to that sort of dynamic?
Yeah, sure. So that's you, both the dating business and the weight loss business, of course, are seasonal. But the weight loss business much more so, right? In the dating business as well, people generally they might make a resolution to meet someone new, and so you typically see a pretty big January there as well. But it's really nothing compared to New Year's resolutions, and um, like the magnitude of the spike is so dramatic. It's a sort of like 5 to 7x sort of spikes on those key 2 week period between after Christmas really is, but especially around the New Year and then for the next 2 weeks. Like that is the absolute peak. I did look into does that really fundamentally is that going to fundamentally change with GLP-1s, right? Because you could tell a story on why you should believe that, right? Losing weight with weight loss with a habit program is more difficult. Maybe that requires a lot of intentionality, which happens around the new year. But losing weight with a medicine is less difficult. So in theory, maybe you see less seasonality. There are some signs of that, and so I thought maybe there wouldn't be as seasonal a peak. But nope, in both the behavior side of the business and the medication side, there was a significant peak. So I think it's just when people are kind of focused maybe a little more inwardly. And I was reading some comments from an analyst who analyzes uh, companies like Novo and GLP-1 makers, and basically saying that it could be that some of the earnings difficulties that these folks have been encountering in Q3 and Q4 of last year are really just tied to seasonality in the weight loss business, and that maybe Q1 and Q2 will be strong. And I was actually compelled by that. I was like, yeah, that actually sounds right. I don't know how they're going to do, but that actually sounds right to me.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. And speaking of resolutions, I know there's millions of people that making the resolution to start a business. As as the numbers of people getting into entrepreneurship has scaled, particularly during the pandemic, but even since then, as people are becoming more empowered and the tools are obviously more easily and readily available. But why don't you speak to that, Catherine, about your book and your perspective on entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So my book is Designing Success. And one of the chapters in it is called, qualifications are overrated. And that's for a reason, when we were starting out, like I said, 15, didn't know anything. But that was true of like every product we built. When we were building the Facebook apps, we didn't know how to build a Facebook app. We learned how to build a Facebook app. When we were building live video, we learned everything we could about it, and we built it. We started building that product, I think, in like 2016. So obviously before it was large. As we were building that product, then you realize it's like, okay, well, no one's actually, this isn't a product that really exists in the US. So no one's really qualified to do it. So then it's just a lot of learning. And so I feel like a lot of, when you're building these products, and what I've learned is so important is that, you can't be focused on what you're qualified to do. You should just be chasing your curiosity and figuring out, how can you democratize it. So right now, you have a bunch of AI tools that can really help you lower the barriers of, entering into any space. There's now becoming like low code or no code options to creating different things. And, as an entrepreneur that started as a teenager, I love seeing that because obviously when we started out, yeah, we hired our initial developers, but now I feel like there's more and more options opening up, and even entrepreneurship programs within colleges are significantly more well funded and have significantly more resources than they did before for people to kind of like dig into. And so in my book I talk about Google kind of being this age equalizer because we were Googling everything like how do you buy a domain name, how do you find developers. And now, that's kind of on steroids. Like there's so much information out there. There's YouTube courses on everything. And there's so much different ways of learning that I think that, it just gives so much opportunity to people that might not have realized, I can start a company, I can do this. Because one of the reasons that, Dave and I, when we got an idea and we decided to build it, was because we had saw Geoff start his first company and run it successfully. And, that's not just showing you we didn't just see, oh, good job, Geoff, you did it. You always had all this, but we saw like the low parts of the journey too, because on any entrepreneurial journey, there's high highs, there's low lows, and there's probably more lows and highs. But when you're kind of in that game and you view your failures and as just more shots on goal, then you have this opportunity to really build something. And so, when I was writing this book, I was trying to kind of find, those pieces of like how we built the company, how we actually made it into what it was, and how those lessons could help others. So, for instance, how we were setting boundaries in order to, work on what we needed to do, how we were able to make decisions efficiently and effectively, because early days of social or early days of video, you're making decisions that from a trust and safety perspective that impact millions of users. And so when our meetings, it's kind of funny, but it's like, okay, well, should popsicles be allowed to be eaten on the live stream? What other phallic foods do we need to have a rule for? Like there's sometimes silly rules, but at the same time, like they have real ramifications for all of your users. And because we make so many decisions a day, whether you're starting a company or whether you're just in your normal job, you can be really bogged down with those. So in my book, I talk about different ways that you can kind of automate different decisions, how you can think about, using frameworks to help you make those decisions more efficiently so that you can really tackle the hard questions that are going to be, your strategy for the next 3 to 5 years, so that you're not so bogged down with like the current time that you can, retake the reins in your life and really be like, okay, this is where this is actually going. This is how you can follow your North Star.
I look forward to reading the book. Those insights are great. In fact, let's get to, we usually do a just one thing where we share, short sort of suggestions or guidance. So why don't we get both of you to sort of opine on one tip for entrepreneurs who are looking to start a business. Catherine?
Yes, I say, follow your curiosity. Follow your curiosity, not just your passion. I think, people often wait to feel passionate about an idea before starting, but, passion is built over time. So instead of, follow what's interesting you, experiment and learn as you go. Because if you kind of wait for that grand passion to strike, I think you're just never going to start.
Got it. Great. Geoff?
I'd say keep it low cost, keep it do as much of it as you possibly can yourself. And you'll be happy at the end if you can get it working. If you can play every role in the company yourself, and then only kind of add folks when that becomes impossible, it's kind of a good forcing function. Like at the end of the day, it's far better to not have raised a bunch of venture capital than to have done so.
What about for folks looking to raise money? What's your guidance there, Catherine?
I think I'll use the general quote, if you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. I think, if you're looking to raise money, if you're looking to do that, I think it's so important to connect before you need the funding. So basically start making warm connections, even if you think you might want to raise a year from now, 2 years from now, start connecting with people, start talking with people. Because, VCs, angels, they're getting pitches all the time. They want, they want warm introductions, but also they want to be able to believe in the company that they're going to be in. So if you can get someone to be interested in your company, be interested in your story before you need to make the ask, that will increase your chances significantly for being able to raise that funding.
Yeah, I would say narrative, right? Like get that, really sweat the narrative of the slide deck, of the the pitch, the 60-second bit, actually have validated something, right? If you could show something that you seem to know that has some specialized knowledge that might have been hard won, that somehow also fits this larger narrative, people are going to pay attention. But if they're not quite sure what you do or where you fit or what you're doing, of course, like then you're going to sound like 99% of the other pitches.
Great. Well, folks, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your sort of journeys. We usually end with a quote or a poem or a saying. So let's start with you, Catherine.
I like this quote by Pablo Picasso. Action is the foundational key to all success.
Great. Thanks. And Geoff?
So I like and have a Jane Hirschfield poem hanging on my or a couple lines anyway. When all else fails, fail boldly, fail with conviction, as a hammer speaks to a nail. I think that captures the day to day here.
I love that. I love that. Well, once again, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it, leave a review, and subscribe. See you soon.